There are some questions here that are serious and must be answered. Did the Chinese intelligence services try to influence American political process? If so, to what effect? Why were export controls on satellites relaxed in 1996, and what national security impact did that decision have? Were our export control laws followed by American companies doing business in China? And was there adequate oversight by executive branch agencies of American companies? What military benefit is there for foreign countries launching U.S. commercial satellites? How have these U.S. policies and practices affected other countries' actions, if any, such as rogue states seeking weapons of mass destruction? I know that we'll have a timely hearing. If we had gone to a select committee, for instance, either a joint select committee with the House or just a select committee in the Senate, it could have taken days or weeks to get the resolution reported from the appropriate committee, have it fully vetted and debated on the floor of the Senate. It could have been a month before we could have gotten started. I think by going this route, it's fairer. There will be less cost, and we'll be able to get going quicker in a more responsible way. Just 3 days ago, President Clinton defended his actions, but he said, if someone tried to influence those actions, that's a different issue, and there ought to be an investigation into whether that happened, and I would support that. So we welcome the President's support of this investigation. We hope that they will cooperate with us in getting information that's needed involving Chinese sources, and I know that Senator Shelby will be the best man at this time to get that effort started. Senator Shelby.
Well, Mr. Leader, I appreciate that. That's a big job and a big task, and I appreciate the way you have set this up with you as the chairman of the task force, and you'll be coordinating it through many committees, because we have some jurisdiction, as you well know, over national intelligence deals on the committee, and we're already into this, but there are other committees that will be involved in this and have been, and what we're interested in is how has this, if it has, affected national security? If so, how did it come about, and so forth. But there's some other aspects that will have to be done by other committees. You'll coordinate the whole thing.
Right. I think that the main focus really should be on the technology transfer. What happened? What's the impact of that? In order to get the answer to that, we're going to have to have access to our, CIA's assistance and intelligence, and also find out something about the Chinese intelligence. There's only one committee that can really do that sort of sensitive work, and it's the Intelligence Committee. We'll be glad to take your questions.
Will these be closed hearings?
Well, a lot of them will have to be closed hearings, but I can tell you, I haven't talked to Senator Kerry, who is the vice chairman of the committee, but where we can have open hearings that would not jeopardize any national security, we're going to do this. I think the American people will want to know and have a right to know everything that we can put out there.
Senator, how will the Senate effort, the Intelligence Committee plus the task force coordinated, if at all, with the House effort announced yesterday to have its own select committee?
Perhaps the committee staffs will communicate some, and I have discussed this area with the Speaker, how they would like to proceed, and when I talked to him, I was still considering all the different options. I don't think that there will be, a coordinated effort between the House and Senate, except that we will, we'll be interested in what they're doing, and on occasion, I'm sure we will exchange information or ask questions about what they're doing, at least in the leadership relationship. But they have a job to do. They have sometimes have to do things differently than what we do, and I don't think we should necessarily proceed in any way different based on what they're doing. What we're doing here really is sort of going with the way things are currently set up, the regular committee set up, without extra cost, unless we find out that they're more needed because of the extent of the investigation. The only difference is that we are trying to advance the effort, encourage faster action by the Intelligence Committee. So I guess the answer to your question is that while there won't be daily coordination, we'll certainly be interested in what they're learning, and if we have good information, we'd certainly want to share it with them.
So this isn't isn't a coordinated bicameral leadership, GOP
No,
leadership effort
no.
to?
We thought about that, but we really thought that they ought to do their job and then let us do ours. There were lots of problems with the timing, how long it would take to set that up, who would be the chairman. I think Chris Cox is an excellent choice by the Speaker to be the chairman of their select committee when they do have one set up. And then there's a question of staff and all of that. I just thought that this would be a way to find the facts out quicker with our regular committee structure.
Any Democrats on the task force?
The task force is just really a coordination committee, and that's a leadership effort that I will use to see what they're doing and to track what they're finding out. The intelligence committee is has an equal number of Republicans and Democrats. I'm trying to remember what are the numbers.
It's one less.
Is it one less? Okay, well, good. I'm glad we got one advantage there.
Sometimes no advantage.
Yeah.
Will there be any investigation of all allegations that the Chinese tried to influence members of Congress in the last election?
That could happen, but it probably...
That would not come under our committee.
No, I think they probably would not come under their jurisdiction unless they come across information in that area. And that's another thing about the Intelligence Committee. Information they find, they would need to share, for instance, depending on what it was, with the Justice Department, or if it would indicate a need for additional legislation with other committees. But that area you're talking about would probably come under the Government Affairs jurisdiction. And I've talked several times in the last 3 days with Chairman Thompson, and they are going to, be involved. After all, I think Chairman Thompson is being pretty vindicated by what we're seeing coming out in the news media. Now, we've got to confirm the accuracy and the detail of all this, but the campaign cash part of it, or the allegations of it coming through Chinese sources to U.S. campaigns will be in the government affairs or in a different way. Our focus is going to be on what is the most serious of all. All of it's serious. But the national security ramifications of technology transfer that can affect missile capability, that is where our focus should be and will be.
Senator, in the past, investigations have sought initially to work with the White House with document requests versus subpoenas, and as you try to track down the process wherein the waivers were relaxed and the various different restrictions were reduced, will you approach it first with document requests or go right to subpoenas?
Well, the chairman may want to respond to this, but I hope the administration will not hide behind other investigations, or and that they will in fact cooperate. As the president indicated, he thought that there should be an investigation. We don't know that there's a nexus or the extent of potential damage or how this happened, but the best way to resolve it is to get cooperation with us, and we're trying to start it off in a way, or continue it in a way that would encourage their cooperation instead of obstruction.
Let me try to respond to that. First of all, if the administration cooperates with our committees and other committees and gets all this out in the open, I think the sooner the better. I hope they will. If the president follows up on his words, it will happen. It hadn't happened heretofore, but the national security implications have just now been crystallized, and I think these are real questions for the American people.
When you look at the comments over the past few days of senators of both parties, including Senators Moynihan and Biden and Lieberman, everybody says this is serious, and we need to find out how this happened and what are the ramifications of this decision that did transfer technology to the Chinese. Yes.
Senator, are you not concerned, though, some Democrats in Congress have claimed that this is more the investigative Congress as opposed to the legislative Congress. In an election year, are you not concerned about how this is going to play back home in terms of, here it is, yet another investigation?
Well, first of all, I think the American people, while they may not pay attention to all the details of things that go on in Washington, I believe they're aware of what has been coming out in terms of the possibility that China receive technology that could help them with their missile capability. I know they're aware of the unsettled conditions now involving India and Pakistan, and they would want us to find out how this happened and what it means. Have we been enhancing their capabilities in a way that are dangerous in the region and risky for our own national security interest? They would expect no less of us to try to find out what happened here. Having said that, I have said for the past 2 years, in fact over my entire career, and I'm hoping I'm beginning to have some impact, I think Congress legislates too much and doesn't get into oversight and investigation enough. I think that's why we have so many regulations. I think that's why we have too much bureaucracy. I think that's why a lot of agencies distort and rewrite the law in a way that disadvantages the taxpayers and the American people that are trying to create jobs and get on with their lives. It's because Congress has not taken enough time to go back and say, you know, is the Education Department doing its job in a way that will help improve education and decrease violence in our schools in America? You know, are our parks in America deteriorating and that we're spending more and more money buying more and more land? We're not keeping up the parks we already have. When you have a very serious allegation of, you know, security breaches or technology transfer, if we don't do that, we might as well just, you know, leave. So I think the American people would expect us to do this, and I think it'll help us instead of working to the contrary.
But Senator, if the House is doing something on this, why almost duplicate their efforts? Because that's essentially what you'll be doing.
Well, the forefathers, in their wisdom, did create two bodies, and they didn't intend necessarily for one to do something and then the other. But as a matter of fact, when it comes to foreign policy and treaties and confirmations of ambassadors and executive branch officials, that reposes in the Senate. Seems to me that we have an extraordinary responsibility to get into the foreign policy questions. I mean, shouldn't the Foreign Relations Committee or others, maybe intelligence, call the Secretary of State at the time that this decision was made, Secretary Christopher, and ask him, why was your position against this? You know, what impact did it have? How was your recommendation overridden? I think we have an extraordinary responsibility to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I mean,
Yeah.
Mr. Leader, I just want to say this. Everybody here knows that the Senate has a bipartisan intelligence committee. The House is partisan. And if we can approach this initially from our committee standpoint, what jurisdiction we have, in a bipartisan way, and we can hit the ground running, so to say, I think we'll be a lot better off.
Yeah. And this committee has a long history of being bipartisan. And it's one of only, I guess, 2 or 3 committees now that just has a 1-vote margin. And they have worked very hard through Republican and Democrat majorities to keep it bipartisan, and I know they'll work to do it again.
And I want to say, as chairman of the committee, that we're not interested in a political advantage here. We're interested in finding out what happened and how it affected or will affect national security. And I believe Senator Kerry would probably echo that.
Have you talked to Senator Daschle or any of the other leading Democrats and gotten any feel on whether or not the Democrats have a different attitude about this investigation than they did about the Thompson Committee?
I have talked to several Democrats, and I don't want to start naming them because I don't want to get them in trouble in their own party or with the White House, but I will specifically mention Senator Daschle. I did discuss this with him this morning. I went over with him sort of what our options were, told him that I thought this was the preferred option, and he indicated that he agreed. And he indicated, yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, at his press conference this morning, he got very close to announcing what I'm announcing now, but I'd asked him to let me at least run it by a few more people, make sure everybody had been consulted and was satisfied with it, and I think he thinks this is a fair way to do it, and I think he understands that we have to investigate the allegations that are now, you know, out there in the public arena. I don't want to speak for him, but I had the impression he thought this was the way to go. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, do you anticipate the possibility that you might want to question President Clinton about this?
We hadn't gotten into that yet, but I wouldn't rule out anything. I think we should follow the facts, and as we get into it, because when you're dealing with national security implications, you shouldn't be dealing with a Democratic issue, a Republican issue, but the nation's issue, and whatever we need to do, we should do.
What kind of... The leader mentioned Secretary of State, former Secretary of State Christopher. Could you suggest some other people you might want to question?
Oh, I could. I don't have a list of witnesses yet, but obviously we would want to question Secretary Christopher and probably a lot of people in the Commerce Department. Who knows? We would not limit it. It would be inappropriate to limit it in any way to this afternoon.
Senators, how long do you think this operation will continue, and might it go into next fall towards the election?
I don't think you should start off by setting a time limit. I have been known to do that on occasion, but it's been more in terms of a year or two rather than a month or two. I think that the sooner we can get the facts and the information that it is needed to make a determination, the better. I would prefer that this not be still hanging over our head, come this fall. But I don't think you can say right now. It might take just a few weeks. It might take more. The main thing is to find out what the facts are.
Senator, the House has this afternoon approved a number of amendments to the defense bill that would prohibit future sale of satellites to China, other technology transfers. Do you anticipate the Senate taking up any similar kind of amendments?
There could be an amendment in this area before we go out this week, and there would probably be amendments on it when we get back to the Department of Defense authorization bill the first week that we're back, supposedly, or certainly within the first 10 days or so of June. So I do expect there will be some amendments in this area. I don't know right now exactly what they might be. It might depend on what comes out or what is developed between now and then. For instance, Thursday night or Friday, we are going to take up the Russia-Iran sanctions resolution. It does allow for one amendment, which could be subject to a second-degree amendment. Unless we get an agreement to basically just vote on a resolution, the second-degree amendment could conceivably be in this area. I'm not advocating it. I'm not saying it will be, but that's the only place I see it's likely or possible for that to come up. This week, so it would be more than likely in the first week or so that we come back. Yes, sir.
The polls showed all along that the American people never did get involved in the whole money scandal investigation. Didn't seem to be interested in it. What would you say to the American people as to what's the difference between that and this?
Can I reply to
Sure.
that? I think there's a lot of difference between ordinary political scandals and where national security is involved or could be involved. I think that is much more different, much more important, and I think that what's happened in the last several weeks, the detonation of the nuclear weapons in India, the arms race that we're trying to keep from happening, but will probably happen anyway, I think that's caught the attention of the American people, whereas some of the other did not. A lot of people had felt, well, gosh, we're pretty tranquil now, and this is moving in the wrong direction.
When the people see it alleged that hundreds of thousands of dollars came through an arms merchant from an officer in the People's Republic of China military that sat on the major communist board or directorate, they have to sort of sit back and be concerned about that and ask the question, well, why were they doing that? Why were they giving this cash into putting it into campaigns? And then when you see decisions being made that inures to China's technological advantage, the nexus is alarming. So I think that there is a difference here because, specific names, places, amounts, and actions are all in the same area. I think that's what makes us different.
So Republicans have often complained that the administration hasn't cooperated in some of these past investigations. Is there a concern here that they won't now?
I think that the record is replete with examples of how Republicans have cooperated.
No, sir. I'm saying Republicans have complained the administration has not cooperated.
I think that there is a legitimate complaint that the administration has not cooperated. I hope that that will not be the case here. When you begin with comments that we've already heard from senators of both parties, as well as the president's own words, And he says that there is no connection and that he wants to find out if there's an effort to influence anybody and get to the facts. If they will help us do that, you see, if you presume innocence, then what you ought to do is to help come up with the facts that show that in fact you're innocent. So help us. I don't want this to lead to, you know, to the worst possible extents that you could imagine. I would like for me to feel satisfied that this was just maybe a sloppy decision and that there was, you know, nothing more than that. But it is a very serious set of circumstances.
There should not be any stonewalling by this administration or any administration, in my opinion, where national security is involved. And this is what we're talking about now, or could be involved. And I think that's a different wrinkle. I've mentioned it earlier, alluded to it. If the administration is ever going to cooperate, I think they should do it now, because if they have nothing to hide, they should bring it up. If they have something to hide, that's a different game.
Should the president go to China next month?
Well, there have been reservations raised about that, and people are wanting to make sure that the president takes very strong positions as to America's concerns. I mean, the president has to make that decision. He doesn't need us to be dictating that to him, but I hope that he'll think about it very carefully, and that if he does go over there, he'll talk about the American agenda. I think it'd be a tragic mistake from him.
Will you start the hearings, Mr. Chairman, right when you come back from the
As
recess?
soon as we can, we will continue we will initiate our first hearings as soon as we can arrange it. We've got a good staff. We've got a very professional group there, and they know what to do. And if we can get cooperation, that would expedite it from the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
When you come back.
What now?
Would you start during the recess or when you come back?
I didn't know.
Hearings, they begin during the recess?
Well, we would, no, after the recess. If we can, as soon as we can initiate it and get it organized and coordinated, we will do it. But all this is going to be coordinated. Our committee is just part and parcel of the whole thing. Thanks.
With regard to the highway bill, the conferees led by the chairman continue to work very aggressively to make sure that we have an understanding of what the numbers are that have been agreed to, identifying problems and fixing those. One of the last issues outstanding, of course, has been the mass transit issue. There have been meetings going on this afternoon with Chairman Schuster, Chairman D'Amato, Chairman Domenici. Democrats obviously are interested in that. Senator Baucus, Senator Kerry, others have been talking back and forth. I believe that they're within sight of agreeing to a number, and if additional funds are agreed to, some offsets to take care of that. But I'm still planning on the document being ready Thursday night or Friday so that we can vote before we go out for Memorial Day recess. I think we need to do that. There's still a few little issues that are remaining. One of them involves an extra road in Arkansas that Congressman Dickey has been advocating, and because of problems we've had with the president, that is not going to be worked out, and so that one will have to be set aside. With regard to tobacco, before you ask questions, with a big bill like this, you have to give senators a chance to express their concerns, offer their amendments, and you sort of have to have a feel for when you go to the next step. We got off to a slow start, much slower start than I had hoped for. In fact, as of now, we've had one vote. We're in the process of having only the second vote on an amendment. We have a lot of important amendments yet to go. So I think it's going to be very hard to get it completed before the end of the week. It could still happen. A day in the Senate can be an eternity or a minute, depending on our frame of mind that particular week. But I continue to counsel people to just calm down. This is not a pretty process. I believe we will pass a tobacco bill through the Senate. It will not be perfect, no matter when that happens, but we need to keep our eye on our goal. Our goal is to eventually come up with a legitimate way to effectively discourage our children from smoking and using drugs and try to help deal with some of the health problems caused by tobacco. Now, what's happened is a lot more than that, and that's creating major problems. And there are side questions like how do you deal, with the farmers' needs. But I think we have just got to see how we do, and then we'll work with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle, the opponents and proponents, and we'll make a decision sometime Thursday night as to how to proceed from there. Yes.
Senator, in your opinion, is it more likely that y'all will finish after the recess?
I don't want to say that because the minute you say, okay, we're going to do it later, then you guarantee it's later. I think the Senate would be smart to make its case, say you're for it or against it, and vote. If it passes, it passes. If it fails, it fails. I think it's something will pass. But there are a lot of legitimate questions. Too many things have been added to this bill. It's way bigger than it needs to be, should have been, anybody ever thought it would be. That has caused a great deal of consternation. Just getting access to the present bill has been a problem. And I think that you've got to let senators have the time to think about it, talk about it, and examine the document. And if they don't feel like they've had enough time by Thursday night, we'll do it later. Any questions?
Senator, on the tobacco tax, what's your guess on that? $1.10, $1.50, anything at all?
I think we ought to go ahead and go for $10 a pack and get it over with. No, I'm being as sarcastic as I could possibly be. I think that the amount of money in the present bill is too much, it's more than is necessary. I think that anything more than that is a lot more than is necessary. It's a little bit out of control here. I mean, we're at an auction, and the biddings has just spiraled completely out of all relationship to what you're trying to accomplish. But again, I don't think at this point it's worth just throwing the whole thing out. We don't need it. You don't need the tax. A lot of people are bent on destruction. They want to destroy the tobacco companies, and yet they want money to deal with teenage smoking and with health problems. You can't have it both ways. Some people dismiss the black market prospects. I mean, you're already, as I understand it, 1 out of every 5 people in California are already buying their cigarettes on the black market. It's real. Having come from a state that used to tax the non-existent alcohol market, it's called the black market tax, I guess we'll just start taxing the black market cigarettes. So it's hard to keep sanity involved with this one. It's driven by some good intentions, a lot of greed, and some fear. But I hope when we come out at the end of the day, when all this is said and done, we'll have a bill that does the basics and doesn't go to the extremes like some people are advocating.
Senator, I just wonder, back on the national security aspect that you opened up, there's a range of options here. It seems like you're going into. The least worst is a slip-up that somehow technology. Yeah. The worst is that the president or somebody allowed technology to go to China because big donors gave money to the Democrats. That's treason, isn't it?
That's the way it sounds.
It's that's the range of...
Yeah, somewhere, but somewhere in that range, from the lowest to the top, and then probably a lot of things in between. I think something like that would be very hard to ever really prove. But there may be some people involved in some conduct that was clearly illegal. And these foreign contributions to domestic campaigns is a legal act. And they're going to have to be dealt with.
On the House floor, the T word was used today. You
didn't hear me use that word.
I said on the House floor. Are you saying that you think that there is a possibility here of treason?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I don't know what happened. But I think that these are very serious allegations, very dangerous things that have happened. And we've got to find out what happened, what the impact was, and who did it. So I don't know. I'm going to assume that it was just a slip-up until there's evidence to the contrary. Okay, thank you very much. Have a nice day.